We don't know what we're doing. Okay.
So for those of you, it's your first time here, it's not always like this.
Oh, yeah, it usually is. It's
Samsara.
samsara, that's right. Can't expect things to work in samsara. But no, we usually have some technical problem. I'm going to consider my karma ripening. Anyway, so welcome. If your mind's not settled, even if you did the meditation earlier, it might not be settled now. Is this on? Can you hear that?
I don't think I can hear.
The hum? Yes, I can hear it. No, that's not what I meant.
Do you want it off?
It's on. I think it's on, isn't it on?
Yeah,
It's on. All right. I don't have hearing aids because I went to Costco after having gone to an audiologist who said I needed hearing aids. Went to Costco and they said, I don't think you need them yet. So being,
Costco doesn't get paid by commission.
That's right. I did. That's exactly what I decided, that we're going to go with the people who have nothing invested in you selling you a pair of.
Because I have a friend who does it.
Okay. Yeah, that's enough. Okay, we're moving on. So, but for those of you who expected me to have them, I don't. So, all right. So just take a moment to kind of find your place here again. Being aware of your body sitting on the chair, the cushion. Checking to make sure your mind is here with you, with the body. Not traveling into the past or planning for the future. And just do a check of your well-being. How's your body? You can take a few breaths to release any tension in the body. And check with your mind. Are you relaxed or not? Now try to bring to mind the reason you showed up today. And whatever the reason, make an intention to use this time well with respect to that reason. Or if you're curious, that might mean that you're going to try to listen without immediately falling into judgment, just openly listening. If you're here to try to understand these teachings better, or just to have a booster shot for the week, and again, you want to try to listen, perhaps ask questions when in doubt. And you do this not just for yourselves, But you hope that however you spend your time, that it will be of benefit to you and it will ripple out to benefit those around you. So we're going to start with reciting the four immeasurable prayer, which I'll put up on the screen. And it's also on the book on page 34. So try to imagine, bring to mind people you care about, or people that you're worried about. And you close the participants. Really try to make this tangible, that you're really thinking of someone like a real person and you're not just mouthing the words. So the first line is about love, which in Buddhism is really just the wish that others are happy. Then compassion, which is the wish that others are free of suffering. Then the wish for joy, which is the ability to be joyous when others are happy, not jealous. And the wish that they never be separated from that kind of joy. And then finally, equanimity, that we're trying to cultivate a mind that gets ever more expansive to include not just people we know or we like or we care about, but to include all the strangers and then all the people we find difficult, all the people we disagree with, all the people, the people, whatever, just, because we all kind of intellectually get that if everybody was free of suffering, the whole world would be better off, so, but it's a practice, it's a process. So it's always helpful to start with someone you actually do care about and gradually expand the circle. So I'll pause after each line just to annoy you. So, may all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. Second line, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. The third line, may all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And the final line, may all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from a hatred for friends, hatred for enemies. Now I want you to bring yourself to mind and just quite, kind of silently, or maybe not. Maybe let's do it out loud just for fun. But this time it's instead of all sentient beings, it's I. Okay. May I have happiness and the causes of happiness. Second line. May I be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. The third line. May I be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. And the fourth line. May I abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. Thank you. And we're going to go to page 98 to recite the refuge and bodhicitta prayer. And of course, recite this only if it's relevant to you. But for those of you who are like not Buddhists, don't, whatever, you may have a refuge. It might be your own values, your inner wisdom, may be from a different religious tradition, whatever it is, you can bring that to mind, to remember that you have a resource to help you in difficult times. And this is recited 3 times. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. So I was reading earlier in His Holiness' book, A Force for Good, about how years ago, he had these conferences, with scientists, to discuss, how science and religion can support each other, and as we know nowadays, that they've done a lot of research on how, meditating on compassion actually changes your brain, and that neuroscience supports these ideas that have been taught in traditions for a long time, that, we want to cultivate compassion, we want to cultivate, untainted love, where it's not about, it's not about me, it's about the person I'm saying I care about, those kinds of things. And that, that compassion really seems, unlike just plain old mindfulness, which is also a big, what would you call it, fad. I believe in mindfulness. Don't let that. But it's important to include compassion. That's where the changes in the brain really come from. So they did a little experiment where they had some of the students, looking at pictures of people suffering and all this kind of stuff, went through little things to kind of cultivate compassion, wishing them well and at peace and all that, the meta, da 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 da. So easy for me to talk. And then others who took a cognitive training thing about the reasons for like altruism and all that stuff. And then when they did an experiment, just test, their altruism, the people who meditated on compassion or was looking at compassion gave much more than the people who did the cognitive training. That there's something very expansive about, we have areas of the brain that are in tune to compassion, and they can even show it in babies, that, and babies also are attracted to things that are nice. I did this cute little research on, under 2 watching this little animated thing where a circle is struggling to get up the hill, just a circle, and then some other thing helped it up the hill, but a square knocked it down the hill. And so then when they had little toys of circles, triangles, and whatever, squares, all the kids picked the circle, or the one that helped. I think the circle was helping. See, I can't even tell a story. Okay, so, and even the infants who couldn't reach for a toy focus their attention on the helping toy. So we have this, we come this way. you know? So, and we all have seen little children, like share, they're sitting there and they're cramming macaroni and cheese in their mouth, and then they hold out some cheese. What's that? You know, you're kind of trying not to go, but, so, but the point is, and what the Buddha said, this is the basis that we know we can become enlightened. We have the states of mind that if we perfect them and if we abandon all the garbage minds we also have, we can have compassion for everybody. We can have universal love. We can have universal compassion. And this is a process. But the point is that we have the traits that can be cultivated. It's not something that we have to invent or, we've already got them. We just need to encourage them because we can lose that ability, or we can suppress it, So like in a very competitive environment, it tends to get suppressed, because our aim now is on winning something, whatever form that takes, the job, the promotion, pickleball. So, but self-compassion. So actually, that's what I was going to say. Did I say this part? His Holiness was talking to these mind life scientists, at this first convention or something. He says, y'all English needs a new word, self-compassion, because I think partly because of our culture, we're really taught, through maybe Christianity or Judaism about, helping others who are suffering, but remembering that we also suffer and caring for ourselves is less of something that we seem to learn. Whereas in some other cultures, it's promoted more, that everybody suffers. So everybody needs, compassion, so, and really the compassion we show to others becomes different when we also practice compassion with ourselves. It has more depth to it. Because that's when, because we really do know what it's like to suffer. And so if we have that in mind, we transfer that kind of knowledge of really that pain of suffering to our wish to help others be free from suffering. It's because we know what it feels like. And that adds a depth to just being, it's a good thing to do. If you understand my difference. So that's why it's important to reflect on the suffering we experience, and then, remember in that, when we're reflecting on that, to recognize our common humanity, that everybody has this experience. Might have different conditions, different circumstances, but we all have this experience. And that's too bad, So it's a process of, when we recognize it all, if we can step back and go, I'm not alone in this, that can help lift us to take care of ourselves when we're suffering. We can do something as opposed to just feel hopeless, arguments just, we're all in perfect agreement. Yeah. Oh, well, that's cool.
We're all in the same boat.
We're all in the same boat. That's right. So what happens when you discover someone has a completely different opinion than you have. I don't know if anybody's experienced that in the past year.
Feel like I'm right and they're wrong.
Yeah. Oops. Suffering, all suffering goes out the window, and it's just sort of like, wow, how can they think like that?
Sometimes curiosity.
Yep, that's a good response. That's a pretty good response about just about anything. It's just because that opens the door of, I want to know more about you. You know, I'm interested in why you hold that view. Whereas, you idiot, slams doors, you know, so. But what can we remind ourselves of when you do have a difference of opinion? Say with your best friend, you have all of a sudden you got this difference of opinion. You kind of can't believe it. Yep.
That we're all doing our best to figure everything out.
And that we underneath that drive to doing the best we can or trying to figure our way, what's driving us? What's the motivation? Happiness. Yeah, not suffering, safety, that everybody wants the same thing. Safety, you know, that their children are okay, that they have a future, you know, all this, you know, that everybody has the same thing. What we're disagreeing on is how to get there. You know, but the needs are the same. You know. And the more we're open to accepting that people have different views on how to get there, the less conflict there is. You know, when we don't think everybody has to think the same way. It's not easy to do because we think there's safety in agreement. What's the possibility, though, if we think about what else is possible if there isn't agreement? Yes, understanding is possible. That's always good. Possibilities to learn more. There may be new solutions that arise, completely different options than either party has thought of before, you know? So it's an opportunity to kind of explore. It's that curiosity thing again, but also to accept that we haven't figured it out. I mean, that's part of the argument. So, you know, it's sort of like, okay, let me think about that for a while, because you're not going to, you know, resolve it right then, but you know, but new ideas will come up. So it just opens more possibilities. And that right away feels better than that closed kind of like, ugh. Because if our way is the only way, what do you do with all those people who disagree with you? You know, so this is our dilemma. It's always interesting to see how people who have, you know, who like have discussions about their different points of view, then go afterwards, go out for a meal together and they're friends, but they're very, you know, firm in their disagreement or whatever, but they don't carry that with them in terms of relationship. You know, these couples who come from different political angles, like I think it's a miracle that they stay together, you know, but they do, you know, and that's interesting. You know, that's just, that's that possibility. Oh, okay, it's really possible to know that that's, you know, one aspect, not the whole, you know, so. But it's so interesting that they show that even sitting every day and thinking, you know, may everyone be at peace. You know, may everyone be safe. May everyone's heart be at ease. You know, these simple meta practices, as they call them, loving kindness. You do that every day for a month, your brain changes. It doesn't take some complicated formula. You know, it probably takes mindfulness. Because if you say those words, because then you memorize them, you know, and then you just, okay, I've done that, check it off your to-do list, you know, probably won't have much of an effect, you know, so. But it's just the key is consistent effort. You know. So what have you been doing for your mind this week?
Meditation.
Great. I rejoice. How do you feel when you meditate on any given day? Not after the meditation, but do you notice any difference? A relief. Good. Wonderful. What else has anybody done?
Therapy.
Yep, always wise. Because self-care is important, you know, and meditation's part of self-care. Therapy is part of self-care. Eating right is part of self-care. Exercising is part of self-care. Not carrying a grudge is part of self-care. Because it doesn't feel good to carry a grudge. Doesn't feel good to be angry. You know, so being able to think, how can I put this down? Yeah.
Some of your advice. I use it a lot, but it came up particularly this week. You were telling the story at one, I think you said for a whole year or in certain situations, you were just saying to yourself, just don't say it. Just don't say it.
Yeah, for a whole year, yeah.
That's what I've had to do for my mind.
Yeah.
And I even muttered it aloud. Just don't say it. Just don't say it. It helped protect my mind. So thank you.
Yeah. Well, I know it worked for me. So that, yeah, sometimes that's all we can do is just say, keep your mouth shut. Don't say anything. Don't say anything, you know? So that's a form of self-care. And it also is a form of compassion for someone else because there's a reason you're not saying it, you know? And the reason is because it's going to cause some sort of harm, whether it's conflict or just hurt or just an argument, you know, whatever it is. But so making the decision not to say anything and then trying to follow through on that and sometimes succeeding, sometimes not. I mean, of course, but it can change your whole manner. I mean, after a year, I got a lot better at not even having the thought arise, you know, to say something that I really would regret later, you know, so it's, you know, that's part of the process. Anybody do anything else?
Silence.
Silence, silence. What does that offer?
Peace.
Just letting your mind rest. But, you know, we get bombarded with sound. You know, we turn on the radio in our cars. We turn on the TV when we get home, or the radio when we get home, or whatever it is, whatever thing you're listening to, podcast, whatever. You can tell I'm not hip, but whatever, you know, so, but, and then you go to a restaurant, there's sound, and then you decide, oh, let's eat outside, and there's sound, you know, so there's just constantly something being piped in. I really thought we did a better job when I was younger to get rid of music in the elevator. And now we have it everywhere. It's not just in the elevator, it's in the, it's everywhere. It's amazing. So literally just not having any sound for a while can chill things out a little bit. Meditation can help discover that's actually spaces between thoughts. Because often when we're quiet, we discover, oh my goodness, look at my mind. It's all over the place, but if you wait long enough, it'll settle down too. But one of the things about the meditation skills that evolve is that because right in the beginning, it feels like, there's no space between thoughts. It's just blah, 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 blah. But when you sit quietly and observe, you'll start to see the spaces between thoughts. Because when we follow thoughts, what do we start doing? Is it freezing in here? Oh, their nose, yes, is.
Yes.
How interesting. It's just lower than usual. That's why I'm saying that. You want to turn it up to 73 or 4?
It's 73.
It's at 72.
72 now.
It's at 72. When I start to feel the cool, I know there's because I'm always hot. So, where was I?
You were asking
Relaxed. Oh, when we follow our thoughts, we immediately start storytelling, and it's entertaining, right? So that feeds that. If we don't follow the thoughts, we'll find the space. That's the problem, is we like entertainment, and the advertisers know it, the marketers know it. That's why there's always entertainment. So to develop a more sense of peace, that there is some peace, and it may not be out there at all, but it's in here all the time. It's a possibility all the time. It's just a matter of learning how to access it. And what's nice about that is when you do start to have some access to it, you have more choice over your actions, body, speech, and mind. So it gives you control, it gives you power. So it's a way of, harnessing your own power. To not follow just your habit. Oh, I can't control myself. Bam, whatever it is. You say that thing you didn't want to, that you were hoping you wouldn't say this time, or you grab the chocolate cake, or you, whatever, But if you find that space to be able to go, oh, I know what's going now. I know what cravings are rising now. You can pause and go, not going to do it. And sometimes you fail, sometimes you succeed. But it's all about learning a new habit that you actually have choice, because so often we really don't think we have any choice. Our mind's so fast, we can't keep up. But it's your mind, you use your mind to observe your mind. So actually you can keep up. And what we usually do is create stories. We keep ourselves entertained. And sometimes that entertainment's not pleasant, because sometimes it's in the form of worry, or doom speculation, that it's just this kind of thing. Oh, and this idea, that's saying you should be able to control everything outside of you. Oh, if I get everything just right, nothing will go wrong. Anybody have any success with that? Yeah, it didn't work at all, but we keep trying. So that's a lot of wasted effort. There's some text, I don't know, where it said fruitless fatigue, and I just could relate to that so easily. So you know, we really do want to recognize that what's going on in our mind affects us. And that it's really important. It's a good form of self-care to notice what's going on in the mind and decide, is this helping me or is it making, you know, me suffer more? You know?
Venerable Tendron, you were mentioning something about science has shown if we meditate on empathy, that has a
Compassion.
change our brain. Compassion.
Yeah. And I think when they do research, they're making a distinction between empathy and compassion as, you know, that feeling the same thing that you get in, you know, versus recognizing the suffering and wanting them to be free of it. That we can drown in empathy sometimes. We can get, because then we shift to our own suffering, you know. So it's they make that point specifically. So it depends on how you define these terms, of course. So, but yeah, it actually changes the brain. So it's, and this is what they noticed in, you know, I don't know if you remember years ago, years and years and years ago. I'm so, you know, Time magazine had I think it was Time magazine had an article, and on the front cover was this bald-headed guy with all these little sensors attached. It was a monk, and they were testing him during meditation. And they did a whole bunch of monks who had a lot of experience meditating. And they found that the areas of their brain that are associated with altruism or compassion, you know, with those things were much more, they had grown, you know, they were bigger and they were more active. And that the part of the brain that's, you know, that the amygdala, whatever, you know, that fight or flight part of the brain didn't become as active, even if they're looking at things that are, you know, threatening or whatever, or thinking about things that are threatening, that it just simply, they had shifted away from that fight or flight response to always coming from an angle of compassion. So that's really amazing. It's like, so, you know, and according to Buddhism, that's the path to happiness. Is having greater compassion, being able to see that we are part of this huge community, you know, that we have, and we're not different. We're all wanting the same things, you know. We differ on how we might be able to get them, and most of us are wrong. I get it. You know, it's not getting the latest, greatest new thing. It's, you know, not getting, you know, winning all the awards. It's not getting the best partner. It's not getting, you know, it's not anything about getting. We need enough, because that's self-care. We need enough food. We need enough shelter, clothing, all that kind of stuff. You know, it's not like, that's not our imagination. We need those things, you know. And if any of y'all, you know, had the experience of not really having good parenting, like as a baby, that, you know, like my mother, when I was born, was really freaked out that she had a girl, because she didn't think life treated girls so well. So she said, I just threw you in a playpen, and that was that, you know? So that idea of having that affectionate, you know, kind of thing, I don't think I got that, you know, but I'm here. So, you know, we don't need perfect conditions to survive. We need enough, you know? So it's really interesting. Now, of course, I didn't know that as a baby, that why my mom was like that, you know? But when I found out that that's why she was like that, everything made sense to me. It was like, it was the greatest gift. It was like, oh, I get that. I can understand your point of view. So, you know, it's just so interesting how we can feel deprived, or somehow, you know, I don't know what the word is. Lack. Yeah. We had some sort of, you know, that we should have been given something that we weren't given. And we can focus on that, which is what a lot of us do when we go for family visits. We just kind of, there he is again. Yeah, blah, 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 you know, or we can focus on what we do have. I mean, if we're here, some caretaker did enough, you know, and we can rejoice in that. Because, you know, like one of the things I really, you know, for my development of compassion for my mom was the fact that she did all these things for me when she didn't even want me there. I find that incredible. I'm not sure I'm like that, you know? But she was able to, you know, make sure whatever I was dressed, she'd actually sewed clothes for me. I mean, she did all sorts of things for me, you know, even though it was not in her you know, list of things she wanted to do. It wasn't on her bucket list at all, you know? And that's amazing to me. And I think about all the parents out there that are dealing with their teenage kids,
Oh my goodness.
you know? Wow. We are so lucky to be here, you know, because I was one of those teenagers. You know, so it's just, it's, you know, it's really about being able to step back and let's look at this from a different angle, you know? Let's understand that all the people out there, the people that we find difficult, the people we find extremely helpful, the people we just like to be around, all those people, you know, have the same kinds of challenges. You know, they all suffer, they all have needs that aren't getting met, they all, you know, all these things. You know, so being able to always come from that angle of compassion or curiosity, you know, is a way of just being, it's like a gigantic group hug, you know. And it doesn't mean we have to like them. Just like when we do something where we say something nasty or we're just, you know, careless with, you know, whatever, and we don't like that we just did that, whatever, you know, we don't have to throw us away. You know, we might need a hug. You know. So it's just, it's this understanding that we're, you know, no one's going to get it just right. Most of us don't get anywhere close. And that's okay. You know, because when you look at the world and you think about all the horrible things that are going on in this very moment, and you look at the percentage of people in this whole world that are doing those things that are really horrible in this moment, it is not the majority. By a long shot, it's not the majority. The majority are living their lives, helping each other, doing all these things. I mean, it's just, it's, you know, but we, you know, it's so scary, the situations where harm's being done. You know, it's hard to separate ourselves going, you know, like, oh, that could be happening to me. And we get really angry and we can hate groups, you know. And of course, we should try to end conflict. But the point is, we forget that most people, in spite of their imperfections, in spite of the fact that we don't like everybody, in spite of whatever it is that are our obstacles, most people are good enough. You know, they help each other. They try to be, you know, good employees. They try to be good bosses, you know, except I'm sure yours. Yeah. So being able to me, when the phrase I always say in my mind, so probably, and it won't work for you, but it's just, you know, it's just like, you know, we need to cut each other some slack. You know, so when we get angry, we need to remember, and that anger can be towards ourselves, you know, that we, you know, hey, grace, let's remember grace. Let's open the heart, you know, and understand when that person, you know, is snappy towards you, they're probably not having a great day. So that we don't have to respond in kind. and continue that not so great day and expand it. So now it's not just one person, it's two. Or then when we walk in, go into a room and we have to tell everybody, what that jerk did, blah, blah, blah. And now it's expanded even bigger. So,
I had an experience this morning coming down here. I was feeling the person that I'm missing, and but it's over, right? So now I'm saying, "Oh, I'm gonna text. I miss you," and then I stopped myself from doing that. And then I thought, okay, there's something attached to it if I say I miss you. But then I was able to think about it and say, I'm thinking about you. And that made a whole lot of difference.
yeah. Yeah. So this is you see, that's that pause where we kind of go, okay, let me think about this. Do I, am I trying to get something out of this exchange? So like when you wanted to send a text message that, has a hook.
Exactly.
And then being able to go regroup and say, no, I just want to let them know that I think I'm thinking of you. So it's this is that choice we have. Now we can't control the other person. So whatever we do, we might not get the response we're hoping for, or we might get a totally unexpected type of response to something we say or do. So what can we do with that?
And in this case, I didn't expect a response. Once I changed it to I'm thinking about you, it was free of wanting a response.
I'm saying, okay, so yes. So, and what happens, what can we do with it when we get responses that we don't expect, or that are kind of really the opposite of what we thought would happen, if we thought anything would happen? What can we do with that event?
Pause.
And do what? Is pausing enough?
You-
I mean, sometimes it's all we can do. But in those kind of pauses, we are making a decision, aren't we? I'm not going to say anything back. I'm not going to be reactive. So what are we doing in the pause? What can we use that pause for? That's one thing, is to stop ourselves from being reactive,
Think of something skillful to say.
So yes,
If
instead,
you want to say something.
and at all. Yeah. So then you can try to see, like, this is where curiosity can come in. Like, oh, that's, I'm interested in why why you just said that, or whatever it is. It's hard to do it without an actual conversation going on,
Always gives you a chance to consider why they react.
Yeah. So you get to analyze it for a moment. And that's where your opportunity is to realize, I need more information. I don't have to be reactive. If they're their words, it's not about me. I need to find out what's going on for them. They may be attacking me, but it still doesn't mean it's about me. It means that something's going on with them. They're their words. Just like our words are ours, and we're responsible for those. And they come out of all of our stuff.
So you're saying, in so many words, take a breath, and think twice before you say something.
That's not all I'm saying. I am saying that, but I'm also saying you want to use that pause to look deeper. One might be to step back, to just be able to, just receive, It might be an opportunity to diffuse something that seems to have been triggered, or it may not if you don't have a clue what that could be, because you might make it worse. Yeah. So it's good to, it depends, of course, on the person. If you don't have a relationship with this person, there's not much, then you probably can't go any with that. But you can apologize for, oh, I'm sorry, yeah, whatever. Again, it's hard to make up a response when you don't have the conversation going on, because we can read language and body language and things, sometimes incorrectly, but, but yeah, so it's an opportunity. So we want to take that pause and explore possibilities. Now, what happens, what can we do with that information in terms of ongoing relationships where we kind of have this kind of clash from time to time, on a regular basis?
Remember love.
Well, that's always good. If it's an ongoing relationship, then there's, you want to remember, oh, there's a reason they're in my life,
How we wanna be.
yeah, how we want to be. What else can we do?
The same idea we should have for everybody. How can I help you be happy?
First, I think yes, I think that's a great, I mean, if you have that developed, if you're in a place where you're never reactive, all you want to do is make someone else happy, then you start there, If you're not in that place yet, one of the things you need to do is reflect when you're not in the thick of it, when there's not something going on, and think about the relationship. Think about, okay, why do I want to react back? What's going on here? Da, 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 da. Kind of, find what's in here. And then you try to create the opportunity where the two of you can talk about it, because it's an ongoing thing, ongoing relationship. So you don't have to just say, oh, I just have to put up with this. You can try to understand what's going on, but you first need to check up what's going on with you. And you need to check up, you kind of like, you may even have to write down what you said to see how does it look on paper. Because sometimes we just miss it. We don't see our own sarcasm, or we don't see our own little cynic, that's in there. And other times it can be just really, we press someone's button and there's no clues. But if this is someone you have a relationship with, you might want to find out, but you need some space before you do that.
I think it's worse when, like in my case, and nothing comes back. There's silence. That is,
And who's that worse for? Yeah, oh me, poor me. Yep. Yep.
what do you do with that?
Well, first you go, oh, well, where am I? Oh, I'm just, this is all about me. You just made it all about you. And that's one of those things we have to look at. Am I always coming from a place that's just all about me? Am I, that I can't let in what's going on with them? We're so afraid of being rejected or being whatever, left behind, or whatever it is. We need to recognize that and take risk. Actually put ourselves out there. But that person may just be going, don't say it, don't say it. And then you can think, they care enough not to say it. Because sometimes we don't rejoice in other people's efforts to try not to hurt us. Any thoughts?
Being open that the person might engage, that they not process it the way you.
Yeah, we need to understand that other people's responses don't have to match yours at all. They may process different information differently. They may, whatever. I mean, I know a lot of people who process things in a very slow, methodical way, which tends to create wisdom. I, on the other hand, have a sort of quick, response mechanism, so the pause really helps me a lot, because we jump to conclusions that we know what they're thinking or what they're not saying, and we don't know. And it is hard to adapt to someone else's style. That's one of our challenges in relationships, is kind of realizing, oh, you mean you don't think just like, and you have to make the effort. Oftentimes we kind of send out these signals that, like, I don't want to learn your method, and how reasonable is that? That's where that's why when we sit quietly to ourselves and look at these things, we can kind of go, huh, am I throwing up obstacles so that it's not possible for this other person who does things in a very different style to respond to me? But oh, that's a triangle that helps a circle. Just saying. It's just, we need to remember that the person who benefits the most from compassion is what? Is who? Yeah, it's the person feeling it. That's the first beneficiary of compassion. Why would that be?
Virtue within ourselves that we can use.
Well, that's a good after effect, yeah. But like in that moment, what are you not feeling?
Anger.
Fear, it's not about you. You just shift it to the other person, and your concern is for them. So your concern isn't for you. And right away, we feel better. Because when we think about ourselves, mostly we think about how we suffer. How we're not getting what we want, or I don't like this, how we're not able to avoid what we don't want. This is that self-centered mind, that the Buddha says is at the heart of our suffering. And so we want to always recognize where we are in any given situation, it's like, oh, so that's why it's so important to notice those little clues that we're getting upset. That tightness or the shoulders up here, which mine always are, so don't read anything into that. That little gut reaction, all these clues that we have that, oh, I'm not comfortable, the main reason we need to know that is then we can provide some self-care, But then we also have to consider, what is self-care? Is self-care protecting us from the enemy? Really? Maybe sometimes, but rarely. It's because we have good conditions, so it's, so we need to recognize that we have to look at what we consider self-care. So part of self-care is recognizing, I'm not comfortable and I don't want it to get worse. And one of your reasons might be because I don't want to be that jerk that's reactive. So let me, see if I can step back a little bit so I can chill, or just, move on, whatever you need to do to not be in this whatever situation until you figure out what's going on. That makes sense.
Venerable Tendron,
Yes.
can you please answer the question in the chat?
Okay.
Thank
So
you.
I never look at chat, so I rarely see it. Is there a way to practice pausing before talking? Most of the time, I remember when it's too late. Well, that's the big way you start. It's like, oops. So I think it's like by sitting and imagining these kinds of conversations, you practice it in advance, like especially with people you have difficulty with, that it seems to come up a lot. You just, in your imagination, you practice these things and you practice how it might look differently. One of those ways it could look differently is if you pause, if you take a breath before you respond. And sometimes you actually have to practice that. If you're like me and just have to spend a year saying, don't say anything, don't say anything, you really may have to just practice not ever responding without a pause first. So you slow everything down, and it will feel very uncomfortable if you're a very quick responder. You'll just feel very awkward, but probably no one else will notice, because we're not talking about a 5-minute pause. We're talking about like a breath. So, but we had to practice it because we don't even know what it looks like.
It's very strange
Yeah.
to not immediately jump in with saying something.
And then you usually have to relearn it. Like you kind of go through and, oh, this is better. Then you go right back. Because we do like what is familiar. Our habits are familiar. And so until something becomes the habit, the other thing is going to, the one we're trying to change is going to be more familiar. So we have to keep working on it because we'll make some progress and then we won't. We'll go backwards. And then we have, that's why motivation matters. That's why setting the intention that it's really important to me that I learn how to not be so reactive, so I need to learn how to pause. And then there's a lot in it for me, as well as for all the people around me. And I would like to be that kind of person. And you have to remind yourself of that intention. So before you have those conversations with those people that you have a tendency to be reactive towards, you also want to remember this is a challenge for you, and you take a risk, try it out. So, but yeah, I wish it was, if it came naturally, it would already be your habit. So, it's like anything else. When we're trying a new habit, it takes time. And it takes, not doing it, going, oh, I didn't do it, So it just takes time and effort. But that intention, that motivation, I want to do this. Saying mantras can help. Yeah.
Nice to be here again.
Yeah, good to see you, Rob.
Very nice. I've observed my mind is very good at being the victim.
Yeah.
And I started meditating once again a few weeks ago. On my way over here, I had some medical stuff going on. And I was getting out of the car and this fellow said to me, can I help you? And I said, no. Okay. Shortly thereafter, he said to me, do you know that you're taking 2 parking spots? Without consciously thinking about it, I just thought, oh, okay. And I moved my vehicle. And I thought to myself, that's not the way I thought to speak. I would have been all up in his face saying,
How did it feel not to do that? Yeah. Okay, but how did it feel not doing that?
It felt wonderful.
Yeah, they'll remember that.
Wow. I was like, it really had an impact.
And so you have to remember that.
And even beyond that, I know that I don't know him, but I don't like him. I don't know him, but I don't like him.
Yeah.
There's a beauty.
Yeah, yeah, and that's so not unusual. Yeah, that's a really good insight there. But what we need to do is really remember that, you know? So tomorrow you think about it and you remember that because it feels good for one thing, you know, but you want to encourage yourself to give that a try rather than the victim stance or the anger stance or whatever, you know, is more familiar to you, you know, to just remember that, actually, it felt really wonderful to not take it like an insult, you know, or feel criticized. And, you know, it's just an observation and it was true, you know, so we have to teach ourselves these things, you know, because that's if it's not our usual way and it felt good, we want to go, maybe I want to do it this way again. You know, but we need to remind ourselves and pat ourselves on the back and rejoice that we ever did it once, you know, so it's all those things. It's, you know, it's what we all learned in psychology, positive reinforcement. Oh, I can't stand it. Okay, what's happening? I was the people, I watch all his heads turn and I can't see because the big TV's in the way. And so I feel left out.
Venerable,
Locked out. Oops. Sorry.
Venerable.
Yes.
Uh, there's one more question in the chat. We
Oh,
didn't
I'm
hear.
sorry. I should keep this open, right? Do, do, do.
I didn't hear it as well. Sorry.
Could you repeat what he is saying? Oh, sorry. Yes. Okay. So someone was describing when they arrived here today that they were someone offered them help when they were getting out of their car. You know, he said, "No, I don't, you know, I don't need any help. I'm fine." And then that person said, "By the way, you're taking up 2 parking spaces." And so he decided to, get back in his car and park in 1 parking spot. And that's not normally his reaction. His reaction is normally to go, hey, none of your business, you know? But he felt really good about not responding that way and just taking the information and doing what he could with it. And I'm just saying we need to reinforce that. We really need to remember these moments. This is sort of the point. You know how I talk about bookends that we start the day with a motivation and intention for the day. And we end the day with kind of looking at what we did well, what we didn't do so well. And we kind of, you know, we might generate some regret for harm we did. And then the last thing is we rejoice in what we did right. That's part of the reason we want to remember this so that we will do it again. What we have a tendency to do is just to remember what we did wrong, you know? And that just fuels this sort of sense of unease that we carry around. Not good enough, not, you know, ad nauseum, you know? And that's just a great condition for impatience and anger and, you know, and reactivity. We all know if we feel physically 100%, how much easier it is to get along with other people. You know? So when we don't encourage ourselves to feel good, when we kind of do the opposite and are always kind of criticizing ourselves, we are making ourselves a condition for reactivity. So that's not good self-care. It isn't that we don't need to know what we do badly, we need to recognize, oh, that wasn't skillful. Oh, that wasn't kind, that, blah, blah, blah. I want to change that. That's, we need to know we're doing it in order to make the desired, to set the intention to change it. But it's this, there's a difference between our actions and our self-worth. We're already worthy. We don't have to do anything. You're a human being that suffers, that has happiness. We're already worthy. We don't have to deserve that. It's a kind of a given, you know? But that doesn't mean that when we treat people badly, that's a, because they also are worthy. We're all worthy. So harming others, they don't deserve that. You know?
Treat somebody badly frequently because we disagree,
Sometimes.
as opposed to disagreeing. What about just acknowledging what their point of view is? This is what you think. Is that right?
Yeah, that's a good way to have those kinds of conversations, is just to mirror back what you think you heard, and then they can correct it if you didn't hear it correctly, and then that might generate the next statement or something, so you might understand each other better. So when I was in North Carolina this summer, I think it was last summer. Anyway, somebody had said in one of the classes that if we continue to determine our self-worth by what other people think of us, or how they're responding to us in any particular day, then we go up and down all day long, because some people respond well to us, some people don't, some people don't even notice us. So, and we're misreading everything anyway. So but it's this up and down thing. Whereas if we judge ourselves by what we do, it's a more even thing. We're not just being pulled by other people's things. We're being directed by our own actions, and that's what can help motivate us to do certain actions. So if we're happier with ourselves, not being impatient or, immediately angry, then we keep doing that. So it's an inner process. We want to use our own wisdom to determine, what we think of ourselves, not being pulled, because we can't control other people's reactions. They have their own stuff. They could be having a terrible day, and you happen to get in the way. So it's understanding that. And one way you understand that is you understand that you do it. And that, you'd like to do it less because it has no meaning. It's not relevant. It is a totally just, it's that self-centeredness blaring outward, because you're so concerned about yourself, you've forgotten how you affect others. Yeah.
I have a friend who is dealing with a father that has a lot of mental issues.
Uh-huh.
So of course he's into raging and tantrums and all that. And they don't live together, but she doesn't know how to handle that because she's trying to be kind and compassionate. And if she tries to distance herself, say, well, I'm going to go take a walk, then he would see that as shutting him up.
Which it is.
You can't win.
No, you can't win.
So,
Okay, so a student's describing a situation where somebody's trying to deal with a very out of control father who has mental health issues, and also seems to have anger issues, big time. Okay. And the technique she's been trying to I don't know, cope with it. One of which is to like say, I'm going to go for a walk now, that action, he says, is a slap in the face kind of thing. I'm making up my own words. So what do you do with that? Oh, you think I have the answer?
I mean, you can't have a normal, she can't have a normal conversation with,
Why not?
well,
Because he has his stuff.
yeah.
So we have to accept that. It's like if you keep going, showing up because you think, oh, maybe today, but no, even if it, I mean, obviously, like Lama Yeshe says, we're all mentally ill. It's just a matter of degree. So, like the fact that we would choose, being angry rather than a much better feeling, it just shows you, that we have a tendency towards that. So we have to really let go of any expectations when we're dealing with relationships like that in our life. It's like you can't have any expectations, and that it's okay to do self-care and go take a walk. He gets mad no matter what. So what difference does it make?
Yeah, that's big.
So you just have to take charge of your side and go, I have to take care. I still want to show up and help out and da 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 da, but some days you might go, I'm not even going to do that because I'm not in a good place, whatever. I mean, because things happen. But, it's really about understanding that it isn't about trying to win. It's just in some relationships, because of where people are going to be painful. Because this is part of that deal that we all share. Mental illness can have this consequence. Now, if you can sit there and in your mind go, this isn't directed at me. This has nothing to do with me. This has only to do with something that's not working in his mind. And isn't that sad? How terrible it would be to have that kind of mind, and really feel that compassion, and know that you can only take it in small doses. But it doesn't mean you don't take care of yourself. You need to take care of yourself, There's no way out of the suffering part. We're going to experience pain. Now, we can get to this perfect place of never being impatient, never being angry, never being reactive, never blah, blah. But that doesn't mean you're not going to suffer. You'll get hurt. You're going to have these kind of things. What you're going to do, though, what's the difference is you no longer do harm. The fact that you hurt is not giving you permission to harm someone else. So, no, do you see me? It's so sad. It should be a better example. But trade places. We'll see how you do. So, all right. All righty. So, okay. Any last questions? Hi. Yes.
Earlier today, start falling. Start telling. I struggle sometimes. And you did mention to try to find thoughts, but sometimes it's
You can't do that. Yep.
it's
There's always a way out. Okay, so when you get stuck in sort of rumination, where and you would like to interrupt it, like sometimes when we're worried, we kind of like, I gotta take a break, but you just can't seem to do it. Usually you have to do something different. You have to either like get up, go for a walk. You have to, do something physical to take, just to take yourself out of that, So, and then when it starts up again, you need to try to, okay, let's, this is why we need to reflect on what goes on with us, is that so when it's not happening, you need to sit down and think about it, and think about how, oh, that's not really helping. It's not problem solving. It's just going over something that I don't have any control over and da, 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 da. So I want to take control, and it's not easy to do, but I want to try to interrupt it sooner and sooner and sooner. So it doesn't just take over my day, and it's just a process, because some days you'll be good at it. You'll just be able to go, okay, I'm going to go for a walk. I'm going to go do this, try not eating too much ice cream. It's not a good tool. So I know this for practice, but, it's this, the most important part is your awareness that you're doing it. It's just like, oh, I do that, and then trying to learn how to sit quietly and not follow thoughts. That's a practice. Now, when you're in the thick of it, you can't do it. But if you practice every day, for 5 minutes, you just sit quietly, and when the thoughts arise, you just kind of, you can put them in a bubble and let them float off, You don't need to follow. And then when you realize, oh, I'm starting to follow, you come back to the breath. That's the usefulness of having an anchor, like the breath. If the breath doesn't work for you, you can, bring your attention back to your feet. You can bring your attention to your, the pressure of the whatever you're sitting on, against you, or if you're taking a walk, your footprint, and you can introduce a new thought. Like one of the things that used to work for me was I would take walks, and, and Thich Nhat Hanh would teach things like, you want to walk with peace. So you just kind of think, oh, each footstep is planting peace on the earth, and it's just another thing to think about, so that it kind of interrupts whatever thread you're on, but it takes practice. You have to do it again and again and again. And you have to laugh at yourself when you're, oh, there I go again. So that's one of my favorite tools, is just to recognize yourself and kind of chuckle. I know you, there we go. So as opposed to beating ourselves up going, why can't I get a handle on this? Because it takes time. But you do need to practice it. So that's the advantage of, when, like you make a practice every day of sitting quietly for 5 minutes and work on, try to anchor yourself on the breath and practice saying, a thought, you just label it. Oh, a thought, story, whatever, and try not to follow it. And it's hard in the beginning. So, and it can be hard even in the middle, So, but we can get there. And some people find walking meditation works better for them than sitting meditation. So, you'll have to, there are a billion resources out there, and you can try different techniques. Okay, so let's rejoice. We showed up, we decided to show up, we showed up, we set an intention, maybe we followed that intention, maybe not, but we just want to rejoice that we at least set an intention, and that any effort we're making of taking care of our mind or our heart, same word in Buddhism, that it's, this is really valuable stuff. And if everybody in the world did it, we know things would, be better. So you want to rejoice that you did it, and that you doing it is going to benefit the people around you. The more we do these practices, it just sends out better energy, So we want to dedicate the results from our positive actions to benefit others, because that's a good mindset to have. Good practice. Let's see. So on page 246 in the book. So again, if there's someone you're worried about in particular, or, someone that comes to mind, you can have them in mind while you say these words as well. So may all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merit. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food, may the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then, may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And then for the long life of His Holiness the Dalai Lama on page 244. In the land encircled by snow mountains, you are the source of all happiness and good. All powerful Chenrezig Tenzin Gyatso, please remain until samsara ends. And then for the quick return of Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's the founder of these centers, on page 234, I think, in the text. I'm having technical difficulty. Well, anyway, we'll do our best. Peerless teacher and assembly of the children of the victorious ones, Pravakas and Pratyeka Buddhas, victorious Losam father and sons, along with the lineage masters, all the objects of refuge of infinite lands, please bestow the virtue and goodness of accomplishing this prayer here and now, holding and spreading the Muni's precious and complete teachings through explanation and practice. You wore the armor of patience that is never discouraged. Incomparable, venerable Guru, to you I make request. While striving single-pointedly for the sake of the victorious one's teachings, the sole gateway through which all benefit and happiness emerge, and for mother living beings, you suddenly departed to peace. What a great loss. Nevertheless, through the undeceiving truth of the blessings of the ocean of the three jewels and the great waves of bodhicitta of the children of the victorious ones, may the smile of a reincarnation swiftly beam in glory for fortunate disciples. Yay. All right, guys. Thank you very much for your attention and participating and energy and all that kind of stuff. So there'll be one more Sunday teaching before Christmas, and then we return on the first Sunday of January, I think. I'm guessing. Look at the calendar. Yeah, when in doubt, check the calendar. So, and we still have Thursday night this week. I think that's the last Thursday night. Next Sunday, we have Medicine Buddha Puja is that day. And that's a prayer that's a prayer ritual that's good for success in anything. So if you're welcome to stay after the teachings and participate in that. So is that it? Okay, we're done.
Okay.
Have a
Thank you.
meaningful week. Bye, guys at home.
Thank you, Tendron. That was wonderful. Thanks.
Thank you. Have a nice week.
Thank you,
Nana.
Venerable.
Thank you,
Bye.
Venerable.
Thank
Nana.
you. Bye, Esther.